Coming up this week on the Digital Lifestyle Show 796, Gary and Richard are here. We've got lots to talk about. We'll be talking about the ongoing printing issue with Windows updates. We'll be talking about Microsoft potentially buying Discord. What does that mean? We'll be talking about the Surface Duo updates, which are working well for me, and we've got Windows 10 updates, retro computing, lots of stuff, smart homes. Let's get straight to Richard and Gary. Gary and Richard, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, here we are again. Getting closer to release from lockdown. We're not quite there yet, but we're on our way.
We'll get to meet up later in the year.
Yeah, we will. Yeah. We'll get to that museum in Cambridge at some point.
Definitely, we're going to do both. We're going to do Cambridge and we're going to do Bletchley Park. We'll do both.
Yep, sounds a plan.
Oh, very ambitious, yeah.
Weekend. We do Saturday one, Sunday elsewhere. We shall do it this summer. Definitely.
Sounds a plan.
Okay, that does sound good. That sounds good.
Honestly, I mean, obviously, Ian, you and I will. Gary, we'll be looking for a charger somewhere. Just driving around.
We definitely won't be looking for a charger near Bletchley because there's tons of them. And they've just upgraded them all to being super fast ones as well. So good.
I'll be looking for some fossil fuel.
You will. In fact, I probably won't be looking for charge at all because that's well within my range from home.
That's good. Right. Well, we've got lots of things we wanted to talk about tonight. There's some name changes. There's some acquisitions that might be interesting. Yeah. Some things were broken. Some things have been fixed. We had new builds with new features as well. And Richard, you mentioned that you've got a rant.
I've got many rants. Which one should I start with?
Well, let's talk about the Windows printing issue, which I think we talked about last week. They had a fix for it. Was it last week?
Yeah, we did talk about it last week. So yeah, this is the thing where I think it was the March Patch Tuesday update. For some users broke printing, and what it did was for users of certain types of printers, Microsoft haven't been that clear on what sort they were, but I understand there was some Ricoh, there was some Kyocera, there were some various types of perhaps more specialized type printers basically began to experience blue screen of death when you tried to print, and that was obviously not ideal. And I had a bit of a rant about it last week because I was disappointed that got through. But credit where credit's due. In a matter of days, they issued some out-of-band patches to fix it, which is great. The patches arrived, and they did indeed fix the blue screen of death. But they didn't fix the whole problem, because what happened was then the other problem, which was when you were printing, say, images or JPEGs or what have you, you would get big blocks of white or just empty bits on your page, or there were issues printing tables, there were issues printing graphics. So they'd fixed half the issue, but not the other half. And so they had to then patch the patch. It does sound like a nursery rhyme, doesn't it, really?
Patch the patch.
Exactly. To deal with that issue as well. And that came out again relatively quickly, but the fact remains that should never have happened. I mean, I would be interested to know what's happening in the testing team at Microsoft that happened, because not only do you break printing, you cause blue screen to death, and it's very frustrating when that happens. But then you patch it, but the patch you used to patch it with is still broken, and I have to say, that's amateur hour. It really is amateur hour. And I mean, I've not really had any kind of explanation from Microsoft as to how that could possibly have happened. I mean, I know we're going to talk about new builds later on Surface Duo, what have you, but this is basic stuff. You've basically been caught with your pants down because you've released a patch that's clearly not been properly tested because it's causing these problems, and you released a patch to fix that patch that's also not been tested, and that is bad. There's no two ways around it. That is not good. So that is my rant, and I've stayed very calm. But I mean, the number of people that spoke to you who were just tearing their hair out because they were experiencing all kinds of issues. And of course, the way Microsoft released this stuff is they called it a quality update. It wasn't a quality update, unless you mean quality as in there isn't any. But it was an optional patch, so you said it wouldn't come down automatically because some had to get it because you had to have the security fixes in the previous patch because there were some serious things in there. So yeah, it's. I mean, I worry about what level of testing is happening, and this is not good. It's not good at all.
Yeah, and they don't test these patches, unlike the normal Windows. A lot of the stuff that Windows Insiders get to test, I don't think these patches were able to test beforehand.
Yeah, but that confused me because I thought that these kind of patches did go down as previews. I mean, I thought the Patch Tuesdays did get tested beforehand. They were rolled out as optional previews. Is that not the case?
I think they just all come at the same time at the moment.
Right.
I think that Patch Tuesday one was available for Windows Insiders, but I think it came on the same day, and it's the same patch. So I don't think there was any pre-testing by Windows Insiders on that one.
I mean, on the plus side, to illustrate the issue, a person did email me a picture of some pints of beer and said, to show the problem, I printed out some pints of beer, and you can see a big white band down one of the pints of beer, and that obviously made the problem very clear and very personal to me, actually.
That's how to bring it to focus for you.
Exactly, but equally, when the final patch came out and he tried again, he produced again a printout of the beer was complete, and that was good, so that was fine. But it shouldn't have come to that.
Yeah, it's a funny thing is that in some respects you can see why the second patch maybe had some issues, because at what quality bar do you set for your patch to fix the things that's blue screening? Because you kind of want to get that out to stop the blue screening, but then you could be introducing more issues. It's the initial quality, I suppose, that they really need to get. If they got that right, they wouldn't have all these issues afterwards.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's it's interesting. A debate we've had for a long while since they got rid of a lot of testers.
Yeah.
A few years ago now, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
again, they had problems with printing last year. I mean, I'm not quite. I mean, obviously, you do have I mean, it's a miracle Windows ever stays up because there's so many third-party things in there. And this was around the third-party print drivers, so they had a problem with printing last year. The issue here is, of course, was the blue screen death thing, and then the fact that patch didn't work.
Yeah,
it's just it's difficult.
Developers testing their own code, it's always a recipe for disaster.
Well, I remember having lots of arguments with people because I being an old person, I wouldn't say I subscribe to the waterfall approach, but I do subscribe to the, when you see coders writing their own tests, that just makes my palms itch. I think the worst person to test my code as a coder, I don't want my test to test my own code. I'll do unit tests, that's fine, but the final testing has to be done by somebody else who's going to think in ways that I don't think. And it's not happening.
I'm with you totally on that. I should be, because there's a methodology which I wrote which actually does all that. But
well, exactly. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I mean, I'm all about agile and all about pipelines and DevOps. That's great. It's brilliant. As long as you don't forget, you have to test the stuff. You can't leave it all to this poor person who's coding away to do also be responsible for all the testing, because that person is never going to catch all the weird things that a user's going to think about. I mean, who was I talking to? I was talking to one of the big DevOps vendors, and their take was, our way around that is we'll do a release, but we'll only release it to 10% of people, and then if there's a problem, we'll roll it back. My take was, well, you've broken 10% of people then. How about before you put it out?
But then again, there is the other aspect of this, which is sometimes you just cannot test things until you put them into production. You just don't have the reach to do it. I mean, a perfect example of that is when you're testing stuff on in-car systems, and there's that one outside person who turns the indicators on and leaves them on for 40 minutes, and that causes a problem. And it's those really outside cases which are just so difficult to pick up in testing unless you do absolute full coverage of your tests.
I've got this horrifying thought of a person leaving it indicated on for 40 minutes, causing some form of memory leak somewhere.
Yeah.
Which, again, I have a very old car that's got a solenoid that does that. That's fine.
Yeah.
I'm sounding like in my day.
Yeah, drive-by-wire is an interesting concept, but it is a very difficult thing to do, and that's why a lot of when you're looking at, I've just haven't been discussing this today, a lot of car fleets will actually test it. Car manufacturers will test it on their own internal fleet first. Put a release out to make sure it's working before they push it out any further. Perhaps Microsoft should do a bit more of that dog fooding.
Yeah, well, some of Microsoft must be printing documents on Kaisera printers, so you think someone would notice.
Well, they used to do a lot more dog fooding as well. That's something which I think they have pulled back a bit on recently. From what's come to the internal conversations I've had with people, and they seem to be doing less dog fooding than they used to do. Whether that's general, I don't know. I certainly haven't heard directly from anybody, but
well, it's not just Microsoft that like to break things anyway.
No,
the last couple of days there's been an issue with WebView on Android. I don't know if you've seen that problem. I first spotted it in one of the Surface Duo forums, and someone said, since Microsoft did the update, Gmail's not working properly, and so this is not working properly, and it was all the applications that we use in the embedded browser. And I read a bit more. It turns out it was nothing to do with the Surface Duo. It was an update from Android that was causing problems for all devices, Samsung and Pixels, Duos, and so I think it was about 24 hours. It was pretty broken. They've released a patch now. I think it came out today. There's an update on it. So I was fortunate because I hadn't installed the bad version, so I just picked up the new version today and got that. But yeah, it just shows you though, someone can push a button to release an update, and yeah, things can go wrong.
Oh, absolutely, yes, and I've given Microsoft a very hard time there, but Google, yeah, the WebView fiasco was just, I've no words for how that got into the wild and was then pushed out. And I mean, it broke some really obvious things as well. This Microsoft thing it broke a few printers. This broke some pretty fundamental bits in Android.
Yeah. Yeah,
it did. Yeah. Yeah, it was quite frustrating now. But I mean, like I said, I was lucky, but not everybody was. And then you rely on you rely on these devices now, don't you? Especially you email and things like that. Everybody just expects everything to work all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm glad that they fixed that. Now, moving on to mergers and acquisitions news. I thought this was interesting. There's a rumor that Microsoft are trying to buy Discord. Have you heard that?
Yeah. This was, I think, was it Bloomberg who did the first report, I think, and then it's kind of gone around like wildfire. This is $10 billion? I think it's been mooted.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is Discord. For those who aren't aware, this is like a video game sort of chat service. It's moved on beyond video games. It's become more of a community where you can just you can do messaging, you can have calls and things, video calls.
Like communities on there now.
Yeah, and it's often used. I mean, I've come across it most when playing games, in that you have a Discord chat session going while playing the video game to avoid using things like Xbox chat and things for fear that other players might hear you. And so the rumor is that Microsoft might be about to buy it, which I have to say probably makes quite a lot of sense. I mean, obviously the TikTok thing was ludicrous when that happened, but this seems to make more sense because it fits in well with the Xbox ecosystem. And we've been talking, I think, for a long time about how they can bring Teams and things to consumer, and what are they going to do about Skype, and Discord would seem to be a more consumer-friendly thing to do. I mean, what do you guys think?
I think it's a really good idea for them. It also has lots of. I mean, there's been talk about business Discord coming along, which would have been a direct competitor for Teams. So it's a way of actually avoiding competition as well at the same time as bringing something in which is particularly good for their audience.
Yeah. And Discord is. It's like a hosted server, isn't it? Where so you can it's like a community hosted server thing. So you just use the clients, and Discord have their own service. So I guess this is also an Azure play as well, perhaps to host Host all this.
Absolutely, yeah, all of this, all of these things and more.
Yeah, it's great. You know, so I mean, it would, I think it would fit in very well with the the whole Teams and things. And again, it is a good consumer play. There's no two ways around it. It's a good consumer play.
Yeah, I know. I don't know anybody that really uses it for anything other than sort of game playing, but I know, I've seen people using it, for other stuff as well. I know there's like there's your favorite group or whatever, or ZX Spectrum or EV chat. All these different topics. A bit like Reddit, really, where there's these Discord servers. So yeah, it seems to make sense. It's a lot of money, but
well, it is a lot of money, although it's probably not that much if you consider how much Discord might be worth if it did. Because the other thing that could happen here is Discord might well go to market and be IPO'd, and then there's a good chance it might float for more than that amount. So it could be a relatively canny buy by Microsoft. I mean, people do say, well, Microsoft we call Discord 365 or whatever else. And Microsoft has a long and rich history of screwing things up like this. But I think I think this does make sense, actually. I think if they can put it off, it will be quite a good purchase.
Yeah, it strikes me as one of the better things. It shows it's been discussed as a purchase by people around Microsoft. It makes a lot of sense.
Unlike TikTok.
Yeah. And in recent acquisitions, they've seemed to have handled fairly well in Minecraft and even LinkedIn. Really, they haven't messed too much. I mean, I was never that much.
Yeah, and I'd also add GitHub as well to that list.
Yeah,
they've done and I mean, Skype they bought a long time ago, and I think they haven't done particularly well with Skype because obviously Zoom has taken off last year, kind of stolen Skype's thunder. And in trying to change the Skype architecture to be a bit more modern, I think they've inadvertently annoyed a lot of Skype users. So I think perhaps Skype is one that's not gone too well, although I know bits of it are now underpinning Teams and things. But LinkedIn and GitHub are two examples of Microsoft has at Minecraft where they have gone hands off and said, off you go. And it's gone really well. So I'd hope the same thing might happen here. I just don't know how long it would take them because obviously they'd need to adapt it so you would use a Microsoft account. And if this is going to be a consumer chat play, then I don't know how long it will take them to actually bring it in-house.
Perhaps they ought not to do anything around authentication.
You went there, Gary. I'm impressed.
Yeah. They've done. They've just started with AltSpace on that, and that's what nearly 3 years. 3 years, I think, since they purchased them. So, but it fits in with the whole community stuff, and maybe with your Xbox account, you can see how that would link in quite well. They tried to sort of do something. Well, it's not the same thing, I suppose, but they went for Mixer, and that didn't work out. But it's not quite the same thing, is it?
No.
True, yeah. And obviously they also bought Nokia as well, and that really didn't work out.
Yeah, definitely. Although, I've got my 950 XL is on my desk here. It now gets daily use. It's driving a monitor.
Microsoft update the Xbox app on that as well recently?
I don't know because I'm not running Windows 10 mobile on it.
Oh, well, yes, of course not yet. But if you were running Windows 10 mobile, I believe in the last day or so, they updated the Xbox app to fix a bug with achievements, I think. So they actually put out a surprise update.
Oh, yeah, I did see that. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I saw the story anyway. So, yeah. But yeah, you're right. The point of it is the Nokia acquisition didn't go quite as well. It could have gone. It could have gone one or two ways, I guess, and it went the pear-shaped way.
Yeah, it's a shame. It is a real shame.
It's a different Microsoft, though. Again, a very different Microsoft to the days of the Ballmer acquisition. The Steve Ballmer era and the acquisitions to how it is now as well. It's ran very differently.
That is true. Well, they're looking at how things are going with Android and iOS. I can't help wishing that we had a third choice of mobile system. Really, it's because both companies are becoming increasingly creepy in their own special way. I think just a third choice there that was well supported, and I think maybe there will be in the future. I don't know.
Well, yeah, it seems unlikely unless maybe Samsung or someone goes their own way with something. But
yeah,
it does seem unlikely that there is. It's the momentum now, isn't it? That if you're going to buy a phone, you just expect it to have all the apps. I mean, for a long while, Android didn't have parity with iOS, but now it kind of does. So you really don't have to think, oh, when are you going to buy a phone? You think, oh, does this app work or does this app work? You know, that if they've got an iOS app, they'll have an Android app. But that wasn't the case with Windows Mobile, and another third platform comes in. I don't know, but then again, we've seen this before in this industry where something out the blue comes that that is a game changer, and shakes things up completely, and something we didn't expect comes along. If you look back at when the Trios and the Palms and everything were out there, you didn't see the iPhone coming and Android. So who knows?
Absolutely.
But there's such a momentum behind those now, but you never know. But yeah, so anyway, we'll see what happens with Discord. It would be interesting to see how they combine that with the Xbox service, and I've seen that the Xbox Live might be no more.
Yeah, it's becoming. Is it the Xbox Network? I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Why are they doing that?
Good question.
It seems like a really weird. I mean, it's a little bit like. I've not got any inside information here at all. But at first glance, it reminds me of when they ditched the Office 365 brand for Microsoft 365. Well, why are you ditching a really good, well-known brand for that? And I have to say, Xbox Live, Xbox Network. I mean, are they aping the PlayStation Network? I don't understand why they would do it. Xbox Live is a very strong brand.
I know that one of the things that they are doing, they're checking off the gold requirements, aren't they, for some free-to-play games?
Yeah.
So you won't need an Xbox Live Gold account to play, to play some of these free-to-play games, multiplayer games. So whether it's around that or whether it just sounds more, maybe the live thing is a bit 2000s and 2010s, and we're moving away from that. I mean, remember they used to put live on everything. Windows Live Writer, Windows Live Photos, wasn't it? Live was everything.
Yeah.
And that's sort of gone away now.
It's one of those things where you think, be careful when you tinker with that kind of branding, because it is familiar to a lot of gamers, Xbox Live and what it means. So it's an interesting choice, but I'm sure they know what they're doing with that. I use Xbox Live, or now Xbox Network as it will become, I guess. But yeah, it just feels a little bit like maybe it's aping the PlayStation Network, which is obviously the big thing. Although I don't know if you saw that the PS5 appears to be at the moment handing out selling the Xbox again, which is not ideal. But I guess with the current hardware shortages, it's kind of a bit artificial.
Yeah, it's very artificial at the moment.
Yeah, I did read some interesting articles about some of the sort of upgrading. So if you've got an Xbox One game and you want to play it on your new Xbox, you can just play it. And I think, I can't remember the game or so, but if you wanted to get a PS3 or a PS4 game on your PS5, you had to go to this and install that, and then update this patch, and then put this on. And there was all these steps. Someone had written a guide. I think it was like 8 steps, whereas on the Xbox it was just play the game. And I don't know that Microsoft get quite enough credit for how they've handled the backwards compatibility, and then progressing from right from the early games all the way up to on new hardware. You can keep going and without much issue. And I don't think they probably got enough credit for that.
Yeah, absolutely, it's very effective, and it's a thing which they kind of introduced way back in the Xbox One days, and that's really come to fruition. But I guess all that's really doing is ensuring you don't lose any gamers to the competition. Because you keep your games. That I can't see that attracting, say, a PlayStation 4 person thinking, perhaps I'll buy an Xbox this time around, because there's no real benefit. If there was a way you could do kind of cross-play or bring your games across, that would perhaps bring more people who've got PlayStations into the Xbox world.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I don't allow you to do anything like that.
Yes, that's certainly true.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, Sony have got nowhere near as good a story to tell about backwards compatibility. It's awful compared to the Xbox. The Xbox has got that really down. It's it's taken Microsoft a few generations to get it as good as it is now, and it is really effective. Particularly, I mean, some of the games which enhance when you put them into the Xbox Series X. You get the 4K, you get the improved textures. Looks just stunning.
Yeah.
Really. So you're not only just playing the older game is being improved when it's being played on the new hardware. And I think Sony haven't got anywhere near as good a story to tell as Microsoft on that, which is a shame. But again, I can't see it tempting existing PlayStation owners to the Xbox world.
It would look, one of them would look quite nice with my 4K monitor that I've got now. Actually, I'm not quite sure how that how necessary it is for a work from home setup, but I could do with something to drive this monitor. I tell you, I've got really used to this 4K monitor now. It's really nice, especially when I'm doing support and connecting to other servers and things, and you can, they've always got smaller windows than you, so you remote on someone's machine for support. You can have all multiple windows. So I do like this monitor. It's very good for.
I'm very tempted by a big widescreen for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's very good for some like the music programs as well, for Cubase, because you can see a lot on the screen at once, and especially when you've got it dual screened as well, so you can have like the mixer on one window and the track listings on the other. It's really good. So yeah, 4K monitor, definitely good. I do like it. The only thing I need to the only thing is the stand isn't height adjustable. So it's slightly too low for me. So I've got it raised up, but every now and again I catch it and knock it over. So.
That's why you need that £1,000 Apple stand. You see, that's why.
Yeah, there was that. You can always just wall mount it, Ian.
Yeah, with one of those special kits, because I'm not going to wall mount it on my dry line.
You know how to do it now. I told you how to do it, so.
Yeah, you do.
Gary,
yeah, that's it. I'll wait when we can have people. I'll get Gary to come and wall mount it for me. Now, some new stuff we did. We had a new build of Windows 10 last week, 21337, and we got new features.
What?
Well, kind of.
Maybe I'm overselling that a little bit.
Yes, I mean, you are strictly you are correct. There were new features. It wasn't just the usual. Although they did then follow up by doing one of their infamous. We're doing a test of our servicing pipeline thing a few days later. But yes, there were some new features. This is a build 21337, which did contain a few new things and some new icons, which I think have caused a few a bit of concern in the community. But the new features are things like reordering and customizing the virtual desktops if you use that, which if you do, it's very, very handy. The ability to reorder and personalize them, so basically so you know which one's which. I find it quite confusing occasionally. So being able to have useful background makes it much easier, I think.
Yeah, it does.
They've also the layout in File Explorer. Gamers, I mean, Ian, I hope your monitor supports this, because obviously it's a very posh monitor you got there, which is the Auto HDR. A preview of that has appeared on PC, which gives you HDR is a tricky thing, but on the correct hardware, it does make sort of colours and blacks really pop on the screen, really, really effective. So. If you're the hard hardware, it's almost worthwhile putting the preview on for that, just to see your games really look better if they support it. So that was good. But I think the big things were the changes to the inbox apps. When I say inbox, I don't mean the mail. I mean the apps that come in the box, which they bundled in Windows Terminal. Gary, question for you. With Windows Terminal, which is a great shell tool, obviously if you do command line stuff, it's brilliant. I presume this is going to be alongside the existing command shell, because they can't get rid of that, can they?
No, they can't get rid of that. So I mean, you can open the command shell within Terminal if you want to, which is a good way of working. But they can't get rid of that. It's fundamentally it's baked in at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many scripts and things that depend on it being there. But if you are a command line fan, I'd recommend Windows Terminal every time. It's it's one of those examples of the new Microsoft doing things right. It works really well, I think. The other bit was, I think, a Power Automate desktop has turned up as well as an inbox app. Again, we're talking about the dev channel build of Windows here. It's not the release Windows, which is, I think they're making good, and they've promised to sort of bundle that free with Windows going forward. So it's good to see that. I
tested this as well. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Power Automate, the web version, for some workflow stuff, and I really like that. It's working really well for me, and I keep automating things with Microsoft Forms and things now, so I think we get sick of me at work now, saying, right, I've got rid of that, we're now doing it this way, because it's so easy to roll out. But so I thought, I'll try the desktop one, because that might just be an easy way of me doing these solutions. But actually, although it's got the same name, it's actually a different application. It's not really about workflows with web stuff like forms and Teams and Excel sheets. It's stuff on the local machine, like there's a PDF scanner, so you can do PDF, so you can extract text from a PDF, and you can make these little workflows that are more PC centric rather than sort of web centric ones. So I thought it was quite a nice little tool. I'd never played with it before.
It is. I mean, it kind of put me in mind of the macro recorder of old, really, where kind of create a bunch of actions and chain them all together. So it is a neat tool. I mean, again, we're obviously enthusiasts and like playing with this stuff. I'd say administrators beware. I can see some users doing some horrific things with this thing and then complaining when their machines don't work properly. So it's worthwhile if any administrators are thinking of rolling this stuff out to ensure there's been some training on how to use this, because I can see some users going on stuff quite quickly, because it is, as I'm sure Gary will agree, it's aimed at getting citizen coders doing things on their machines. It's a democratization of the PC, which is great. But there was a bigger change. There was a bigger change in the dev channel. They've changed the notepad icon. The notepad icon changed. It's been actually the fluid stick.
There it is.
It's So Notepad. I mean, they previewed this really in the last year. They did warn that they were going to shunt Notepad off to the Windows Store, and that's kind of what they've done. It's still an inbox app, but it means they can now update it and tinker with it via the Windows Store and not require a full-on Windows update to change it. Which I know some people, I'm thinking Mary Jo Foley here is a good example, who will react with horror to the thought of Notepad changing. And I have to say, I'm with Mary Jo on this one, because Notepad has been a sort of trusted and true friend throughout all the versions of Windows, and now it feels like they're going to do more changes to it, and that worries me, because I like to say the same.
The whole point of Notepad is it's simple and it works.
Exactly. It's just a text editor. Please don't fiddle with it. It's just simple, plain. In fact, luckily they put in the old Windows V pasting, because in the past I'd use Notepad to remove.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
So yes, that's I'd say pretty much it for the new features. There were some of the bits and pieces, but and a whole bunch of fixes.
Oh, about the expanded view in File Explorer.
Well, yes, the layout changes.
And you can still put the classic view back if you want as well.
Yes, and I've still got news and interest as well for some reason. It's not gone away yet.
I don't know how you've still got that, because they've got it's gone.
I think maybe they just know that I don't like it, so it keeps appearing. I said, right, we're going to roll it back from everyone except for Richard, because he doesn't like it, and I don't like it at all. It's still there. It's just lurking, squatting in my taskbar like an unwelcome visitor.
Yeah. Well, hopefully I'll get it back before you, and then they can take it away from you, because I liked it. But this build as well. It's seemed to be a lot of under the hood changes, because we talked about the visual parts of it, but there's actually, it feels like when it's funny, you get used to sort of the way that they feel, these builds, especially when you do them on a device that you use frequently, like I use the Surface Go, and this build felt like there was perhaps more under the hood changes, and something it's slightly less reliable than the other build. The builds have been fairly reliable, because I don't think much has changed, but I noticed something slightly different about this one, so I don't know whether they've introduced some changes that we're yet to see.
Well, I mean, it's possible, because they released Windows 10 21H1 to commercial preview last week as well. which is another milestone. Whether they're getting very close now to releasing. So when 21H1 actually finally becomes generally available, they're going to have to start to show what is in 21H2, which is rumored to be a fairly major update now. So
Yeah.
Maybe they're fiddling things around for that. I guess if only we had some MVPs who could comment on this.
Yeah. If only anybody knew.
But obviously we also have the build conference coming up in May, and so I would think they're getting ready for stuff around there. I mean, there's other bits and pieces too, like, I mean, we're still waiting for the GUI version of the Windows system for Linux as well. That's almost here as well. So we'd think the next couple of months are going to be quite exciting.
Yeah, hopefully. And also, actually, another short rumor story is that Microsoft has pushed back the release of Windows 10X. I have no information. I'd love to be able to bring you more information on 10X because I'm quite excited about it. But all I can say is what I've read, and that the news reports were Microsoft delays Windows 10X. Well, I don't know you can delay something you haven't launched.
I was going to say, so the thing that's not being confirmed is now not being confirmed later in the year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It's
exactly why Microsoft keep quiet.
I mean, again, very, very cynical about all the Windows 10X thing that's happening. There's it smells like targeted leaking has been going on, and I guess those who've had the targeted leaks, it's just been we're told one thing, and they said actually no, it's not going to happen really. It's now being moved back later on in the year. So I mean that makes sense. From what I've seen, it's not ready to go anyway, and the hardware's not ready either. So makes a certain amount of sense. Hopefully that'll mean that come build time we'll see a proper preview with developer documentation published, and that'll give developers time to actually get it out for the end of the year, which would say that would feel like maybe Ignite time, probably autumn next year would seem to be. And there's also normally a Surface event, isn't there, as well? In the although there are rumours of Surface hardware coming up in the next few weeks, but we'll see if that pans out or not. But I think the level of sort of rumour and secrecy around it means that even if it had been launched on time, you wouldn't have had any real apps in place, because I'm not aware of many people that are on official betas for it yet.
No. So we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully we'll get some official announcement. And like you said, an announcement in the first half of this year to launch in the second half of the year makes sense, because then
exactly,
it gives developers time to have a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was a gambling person, I would say there's two major events coming up shortly. There's the MVP Summit coming up, and there's the Build event coming up. I would imagine that Microsoft will share some things at the Summit. They'll then publish a load of things at Build, and then it'll be launched probably in the latter half of the year. And that would seem to be a sensible, logical way of doing it.
Yeah.
I'd be absolutely amazed if they mentioned anything about new hardware at the MVP Summit.
Sorry, I mean Windows 10X.
Even that,
yeah.
I mean, I think new hardware that just pops up.
You mentioned the new hardware. I know that there's maybe rumours of the Surface Duo 2 coming, but we got the March update for the Surface Duo, and this is I'm definitely now suffering from the placebo effect on these build updates now, because they always seem really fat. Like, this thing seems faster and smoother since I put this update on, and obviously it can't possibly be the case that they keep doing it. But this actual one did fix a few bugs. It fixed the issue where when you're in single screen mode and you do a screen capture, it used to capture both screens regardless. Now it only captures the active screen, which makes sense. And they've changed some of the timings when you're changing from front to rear and that kind of thing. So they've done quite a few sort of little improvements on there. So, but actually, it feels like they've probably just about got it to bug free. Maybe where it is now is where it should have been in October, but then things never ship without some issues. But they do seem to have finally got that down. So hopefully the next update will continue with that process. But it definitely feels like they've ironed out all the issues on it. And I do see people having issues with it, and on especially on the Surface Duo Reddits. But I don't know. I haven't picked up on any of those. So aside from the obvious issues that it has with the camera and the NFC and that kind of thing, yeah, Surface Duo is still working good, and this November update has definitely improved it. There was one bug when you were closing apps in single screen mode, which was fixed, so which is good. The launch gets updated every day, but on the beta channel. But yeah, this fixed a lot of bugs.
Okay, great. I mean, it's a classic Microsoft Generation 1 hardware thing. Yes, it seems they did launch it with kind of not quite baked software, but it's good they're working on fixing the issues. And I think the test will be if there is a Surface Duo 2 launch at some point, probably latter half of this year.
Yeah,
because
late
phone makers have to really have an annual cadence. If Microsoft doesn't get that annual cadence, then I think there's problems for Surface Duo. Yeah,
definitely. Yeah, and there's quite a big there's opportunities for improvement, which perhaps things like Samsung and Apple don't get have at the moment, because they're up to the refined standard, whereas no wireless charge, NFC camera, they're easily fixable and make a big, so that it makes the Duo 2 when that launches, or if that launches, a big upgrade. So as opposed to the S21, S22 or whatever it is, they all get much the same.
But do you not feel it's becoming more of an if than a when? Because I mean, I remember when the Duo 1 launched, you couldn't move for Microsoft execs flashing their Duos around, and I've not seen so many of those kind of shots and things from executives now with their Duos in various funky ways. Like, oh, I'm doing a recipe, or I'm out with my family. Now it's just, no, I don't ever show my Duo anymore. So I mean, is that just me, or does it feel as though there's like a turning down of the whereas HoloLens 2 is still being plugged very, very hard?
Yeah. Well, that's because they're all rocking Surface Duo 2s and they can't show them.
Of course. I like your enthusiasm, Ian. I like it.
Yes, I'm bringing in the enthusiasm and optimism this week. Well, I've nothing else new to play with, so I want to buy a Surface Duo 2 and a Surface Neo and a Surface Go 3 with running Windows 10X. I'm waiting to order these things. Yeah, so that the most I've got a new Windows Insider's Cup, and that's about as new things as I've got.
I got one of those as well, Fred.
Yeah, very nice. Now there was one other thing I wanted to mention, not strictly everything that our view, but as regular long-term listener know, I like my music equipment, and we like our vintage tech and retro computing on this show as well. And I don't think I've talked about this, but I came across this project, which I'll show on my screen here. This music website, and what they're doing is they're digitizing and scanning and making available old music technology magazines. So that includes Sound on Sound, Electronic, Musician's World. I don't remember that one.
Yeah, I do remember that. Wow.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah. The one that I used to read was the Music Tech magazine, which I think was a Music Technology I used to read, but that was a later version of Electronic Music Maker and whatever. But these are all online on here now, so you can go back and read these articles as they were, because people this project has been uploading these the magazines in complete. The complete volumes on there. So if I'll go on here to Music Technology one. So if you want to read about Paul Hardcastle,
there's a name. Wow.
Yeah, there you go. And what I found particularly interesting, I've been reading some of them, is the music computer stuff in there. So I should have kept the link. Somewhere on here, if I can search for it, actually, you can search by equipment. So if I search for ZX81, you'll see there's a load of articles here written at the time for how to create music using the ZX81. So if you're interested in your retro computing and your music as well, then these are fascinating. So this was an article that appeared in the December 81 edition of Electronic Music Maker with Rick Wakeman on the cover. And you can see the full articles in here, all been scanned in. So here's the got the code in there as well if you want to go. It even tells you how to work in machine code on here. And which is pretty interesting in a music magazine, but it's electronics and everything. But yeah, so all this is in there. So there's stuff for Spectrums and BBC Micros in there, and of course there's all interviews with the people making music, electronic music in this era, and reviews of new synthesizers. You can so I could search for my little. I think I've shown this one off before, my Gen SX 1000, which I bought for 35 quid back when I was at college. But yeah, so it's the actual review of when it came out. So this is from whenever 82, September 82. So it's fascinating to me. I love reading about old music gear as well. So and I have to stop myself from buying it. But yeah, so if you're interested, but you can donate as well to this site as well. It's a massive undertaking they've done. There's about 10 different magazines covering, I guess, nearly 20 years ranges, and it's all in there, the articles with the musicians, everything. So definitely recommend that if you're interested in that kind of thing, and especially if you're into retro computing, you have a look. And there's some great articles in probably any 80s, 70s, 80s musicians that you're interested in, probably find them in there as well. So, and many of these I do remember reading and having, and sort of and keeping these magazines, and look at this, a new synth coming out, and I used to sort of devour these magazines back in the day. Yeah, so anyway, good project. You can follow them on Twitter as well, but I'll make sure I include a link in the show notes, because I'm very, very impressed with this, and a trip down memory lane, but useful stuff as well. Right. And just talking of music as well, a bit self-indulgent. I apologise, but I did release a new track that was recorded on my gaming PC. So the last couple of weekends. So I'll include a link for that in the show, so you can have a listen to that. It's a bit 80s inspired. It's got some of my old kit in there, including my DX100 that's sitting over there, which is an original 1986 keyboard that still works.
You do know that's 35 years old, Ian?
Yes, I know. Yeah, there is that one over there. He's 35 years old. Yeah, the one behind me. The one behind me, just below there, he's from 1982, and the drum machine here is from 1985.
Wow!
But they made stuff to last then. They definitely made.
Yeah, they did. I mean, yeah, that's it. Yeah, this stuff lasts. My poor little Gen there, though. I powered it up over the weekend, and the pots are very noisy on it. So as you turn in the dials, they're very crackly, and I think it needs a bit of restoration work on that. So maybe I have to get the soldering iron out, and a bit of, you can get that compressed air, can't you, and stuff to clean the pots with. That's probably the thing I need to do. And get that to get a number of times with family. I go, look at this, and they go, why have you still got that? It's vintage. Just like the rest of us.
And we're back again to our summer trip to the museums.
Yeah. So and that's, some of the museums have got a lot of this vintage music kit as well. And the I don't remember, the Yamaha MSX range.
Yes, yeah, very well.
Running Microsoft Basic.
And what did MSX stand for?
Oh, I don't know. I can't remember it.
Wasn't it
Microsoft?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I know they ran Microsoft Basic, and the reason why I mentioned in the music context is that you got that's a Yamaha DX100, but the DX7 was the famous thing in the 80s and everything, and the Yamaha had their own MSX computer, which was a CX5, which had the sound chip built into it, and I remember having one of those at school, and it was a complete sort of music studio. So I'm pretty sure they've got the museum. They've got one of those.
Yeah, I'm just flashing back to I think I might have had a Sony MSX computer, I think, but that again, we're going back to the early 80s for that. We're
gonna have to have a show about MSX, because actually it's got quite an interesting story, isn't it, of how they were like compatibles, weren't they?
Didn't it have like a massive cursor keyboard as well? I just got a vague memory of colossal cursor keyboard on the side of it.
There were some bits of kit, those.
I am flashing back a long way there, because it was the early 80s. But they were great.
Yeah, they just never took off, really, did they? But, well, not in this country. They might have done it.
Yeah.
And I think Japan it was popular.
I think Japan, I think Japan did well, but I think Europe, they never really did particularly well, to be honest with you. I mean, yeah, I think some made it to the US perhaps, yeah, it's unfortunate that it never really to do here. But I think I think that they were good bits of kit.
They were.
Well, so there we go. So if anybody's listening, knows about the MSX, maybe we should do a little special on those at some point in the future. There's bound to be somebody on Twitter that I'll put a tweet out. There's bound to be somebody that knows about this stuff.
Exactly. Oh, and I have to say, I've just noticed, Ian. Just a very quick Google while we've been talking. The Metal Gear series was first written for MSX hardware.
Was it?
Wow. Now that's a claim to fame.
How about that? There we go. And that was on Wikipedia, which is always correct.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's something we'll have to. We've done ZX80. Well, maybe we're going to do the story of MSX now.
I think we should, definitely.
And like you said, hopefully we'll get to go and play on some of this kit in real life later in the summer.
Hopefully, gonna happen.
Yeah. So, Gary, where can we find you and follow you and find out when we can meet up and when the people will be able to see the real Gary?
You can see the real Gary as you can also find me on Twitter at Gary 2Rs WMA. Actually, I'm just right for free. I actually had a Twitter question asked, which actually put me down a huge rabbit hole. So I'm just going to quickly mention it because it's quite an interesting one. So basically, someone asked me, how do you? I've just replaced my Echo Plus with one of the new Echoes, which has got the Zigbee controller in it, and everything in my house has stopped working. How do I transfer all my smart devices from the old Echo Plus to this new device? And the simple answer is, having done a lot of research into it, you can't. You have to repair them all. Which is so apparently Zigbee is paired to the hub, and it's the device pairs to the hub. So you can't just shift stuff across from one hub to another hub. So if you do upgrade your Echo devices, and a lot of people may be doing that now because there's a lot of nice new stuff out there, it's something to be wary of, that you might have to actually physically repair all your devices, to the new hub.
Right. So if you're using something like the Hue hub, then you wouldn't have to start again, because that's a one-to-one. That's the Hue hub to the thing. But if you're going directly to the so it's just that point of doing, and this applies also if say you've got something like a SmartThings hub and you've paired everything to one SmartThings hub and you want to move across to another SmartThings hub, which of course has been a big thing in the recent weeks because they have obsoleted the original SmartThings hub, and lots of people are going out trying to get the newer ones and upgrading, and it's a major job to repair this. So that's obviously a failing in the Zigbee standard, I think, in terms of there ought to be an easier way of repairing stuff across from one server to another. But there you go. That's what you have to do. You literally have to delete it all off and start again. Blimey.
Unless anybody knows different. But as far as I can work out,
that's probably a whole show in its own right, isn't it? When you're moving house, and you talk because it happened to you, but we talked about it a few shows ago. But when you take all your smart home kit from one location to another, it's a massive undertaking now. Something you didn't have to think about years ago, but now it is. Yeah, absolutely. Excellent. Well, and so they can get your Twitter. Richard, where can they find you?
You can find me mostly on Twitter at Richard_Speed, making Lego.
Excellent.
And very good Lego at that.
It is, yeah. And you can find me at iSticks on Twitter, and where I'm going to go now and take some photos of my frogs in the pond, because they've gone crazy. There's and I've got lights on sort of the pond now, so you can see them at night, and I've never seen them like this. Normally they hide and you never see them, but because it's breeding time, they're all over the garden at the moment, so I'm going to go and try and capture them swimming around. Actually, I did a very good survey. I mentioned frog spawn. This is the thing with Twitter, isn't it, that I mentioned it, and then someone tweeted me and said, can you participate in the UK survey? So you go onto this site, you put your town in and the date that you've got the frog spawn, and they're collecting all that data and producing sort of stats of the temperatures, and they've got some good correlation between the daytime temperatures and the number of frog spawns. And it's because it's all endangered species or endangered protected environments, and they're losing their environment, the things like that. these organisations are trying to protect them and track them and help them. So you can do that, but it's great. You just mention something on Twitter and somebody will reply to you in about 10 minutes with something like that. It's quite interesting. My wife's kind of looking at me and saying, well, why? But I thought it was fascinating, especially when you go on the site and you see the stats.
So does this make you a frog spawn influencer? Is that what you are now?
Actually,
Yes, there you go. I do feel like that. Yeah, there you go. I found my niche.
Exactly. TikTok ribbit. There we go. Fantastic.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, nice one. What a good way to end the show. Right, we'll be back same time, same place next week, and we'll see you then.
Cheerio.